What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special Pac-12 championship game crossover edition of Dash Sports TV. I'm Nathan Ackerman of Trojan Dash, and today I am joined for this special crossover show by Izzy LaRue of Duck Dash. Izzy, how are you doing today?
It's a great day when the Ducks are playing football, so it's a great day.
It is a great day. Should the Ducks be playing football today? That is a question that is still, I guess, the jury's still out on that. We can talk about that a little bit later. But let's get into this matchup because there is a lot to talk about. This will be USC's third game in 13 days. They played Sunday night against Washington State back a couple weeks ago. Then they played Saturday night in a thrilling game at the Rose Bowl, and now they're playing on 6 days rest at the Pac-12 championship game. Obviously, they didn't even find out their opponent until Monday, I think it was. They were originally scheduled to play Washington. Washington had a massive COVID outbreak, could not have 53 scholarship players or the minimum at a specific position group. I don't know exactly what that group was, but really it doesn't really matter. So USC has known their opponent for a total of 4 days now, and Oregon, on the other hand, is playing its first game in 14 days. Last weekend, their game was postponed against Washington due to that COVID outbreak, of course. So I want to ask you, these two teams are entering this game on totally different wavelengths as far as rest and preparation goes. How do you think that's going to impact the on-field product tonight?
Well, when you talk about that 14 days of rest, really look at one group and one group only, and that is the running back group. Now, CJ Verdell, he has not been the same since these past 3 games. You're looking back to the UCLA game, and especially in that Cal game where he got a total of like 10 reps. He could even punch in a 4th and 1 conversion, so that showed you how he was doing then. And now you give him 2 weeks of rest. This running back group, it's going to look like how they looked against Stanford. Really dynamic. You're going to see Verdell back, not Troy Dye. You're going to see Dye be more involved in the passing game rather than the run game. And this opens up the Oregon offense so much more. Now Joe Moorhead, he gets to finally run the RPO offense that he ran against Stanford, against Washington State, where they put up those big numbers. So these 2 weeks were really crucial for Oregon. You couldn't ask anything better.
Yeah, so from my perspective, from a USC perspective, I guess what I'm bracing for is a really, I guess, complex Oregon offense, right? They're going to run the ball a lot, but they're also going to do a lot of that RPO kind of stuff, and they're going to do tempo. And for me, that's one of the most difficult things for a defense to only have 4 days to really prepare for. Of course, leading up to the Washington not being able to play, they were obviously in the back of their mind. There was, okay, we might be playing the Ducks instead, but at the end of the day, you've only been preparing for this offense for a total of 4 days. And I've heard a lot of people say the same thing about Oregon's only known who they were going to play for the last 4 days too. So it really kind of evens out. To me, that's kind of outrageous. Before Oregon was going to play the Trojans in the Pac-12 title game, they were going to play Colorado in a basically meaningless, Pac-12 game that the stakes were really not going to be that high. And I'm sorry, but if you think Oregon was spending the last week and a half preparing for Colorado, not even thinking about the possibility of playing in this game, you're out of your mind, because again, that game was going to be nothing. It was going to be absolutely nothing at all. So the whole time they were basically saying, okay, yeah, right now we're scheduled to play Colorado, but we know that it's pretty likely we're going to play the Trojans. So they've really been preparing for this matchup for a week and a half to 2 weeks. And I don't want to make any excuses, right? If USC is going to win the Pac-12 championship game, they're going to have to do so over the team that finished second place in the Pac-12 North. And if they can't do that, you can't really pull any excuses out of the book and say, oh, well, they only had, well, it doesn't matter, right? But I'm just talking about the on-field product. When it comes to the actual game, Oregon has known for quite some time what they're going to see. Hint, a lot of passing, and USC knows what Oregon has probably been preparing for, which is, hint, probably drop 8. So, again, USC knows what they're probably going to see from an offensive perspective. But on the defensive side, they've only been preparing for this high tempo, complex RPO, run heavy, but with some running backs in the passing game and with a pretty talented quarterback too. It's this is a lot to prepare for. And basically, to me, it's going to have to be pretty dumbed down and say, okay, we're just going to play our game, whether that's aggressively, whether it's relying on our defensive backs to keep on playing the way that they've played, but they haven't really had the time to say, you know, this is what Oregon tends to do on 3rd and 3 from the opponent's 42-yard line when there's this much time left in the second quarter. Like, that's not the kind of thing that they've been doing. So I think, to me, there's going to be, and it'll probably be more at the beginning of the game. There's going to be a lot of adjustments to make, I guess. Again, not making any excuses for if the Trojans come out and they start down, 21-7 in the first half. But yeah, I think it's going to be noticeable, and I think it's something that USC coaches obviously downplay because, they don't want to come out here and say, well, oh, we're getting screwed over by the Pac-12, because they're really not, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's going to make a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, and preparing for an RPO offense, this is kind of one of the worst offenses you can prepare against, especially with only having 4 days in. Because you think about it, you're asking position groups to focus on their own assignments. They can't focus on anything else. So you talk about a safety. He only has to worry about the option play. Now, he might get enticed to maybe go for the quarterback, but if you go for the quarterback, then he just throws it to the option, or maybe he gets sucked into the run game, and that's when the quarterback bootlegs it, throws it over top for an easy touchdown. So right now you're asking USC's defense position groups to have very specific assignments and to trust each other. Nathan, do you think that these guys can trust each other in that way?
I certainly hope so. I think one of the big things coming back to that as well was this defense knows what happened last year. USC just got boat raced 56-24 at the Coliseum, and they were talking in some of the media availabilities press conferences this week about how this is a much more cohesive group. There's a lot more trust. The unit on the whole is just better than last year's group. And of course they're going to say that. Like, that's just what football players do. They aren't going to say, yeah, I feel like we're not really that good of friends this year. So, obviously you take that with a grain of salt, but I do think that there is a sort of, I don't know, intangible impact to the fact that these guys are going through a season this year, which is like unlike any other season in college football history. And if that's going to do anything to a team's chemistry, cohesiveness, it's going to bring them closer, right? So I think maybe that'll be one of the kinds of things. And then also they're coming out with, that blowout against Oregon is at the top of their mind this year. Like, they're not going to be, trying to say, oh, this is just a regular game. We're not trying to get any specific type of payback, revenge, whatever. No, they know exactly what happened. They know what's on the line here. Not just, a trip to the Fiesta Bowl, a New Year's Six Bowl, dare I say it, the college football playoff. No, okay, I'm just joking there. But as far as the long-term effects of this game from a recruiting standpoint, a national relevance standpoint, obviously they want a Pac-12 championship, so I think they're going to come out hungry. It's just a matter of, have they had enough time to prepare for the kind of offense that they're going to see? And it's a kind of offense that they really haven't seen at all this year, and it's probably going to be the best one that they've seen too. But for me, Oregon's thing, I always come back to, does that extra week off ultimately help them in the long run, or does it hurt them, right? And for me, it's like they weren't the team with the COVID problem, right? So they've been fully healthy, fully healthy from a COVID standpoint this whole time. And they've had those 2 weeks to prepare. They haven't been kept out of practice or anything like that. So theoretically, they should be totally fresh, well rested, whatever. So I think from you go from first game in 14 days when you've been practicing pretty much that entire time to a team that's playing its third game in 13 days. Again, not making any excuses in advance, but I think that just from a human standpoint, just from the fact that football is a brutal sport, I think that's going to, prove to be significant. It's going to make an impact on how this game plays out, especially because these are two physical teams. So we'll see.
Yeah, when you ask football players to play 3 games in 13 days, it's definitely going to have an effect on them. And honestly, I would hope to see an energized USC team just because of what happened last game. But who knows? They could come out pretty slow in the first half and then get going in the second half. But you just hope for the best because you want this to be a great game to showcase what the Pac-12 is about. But then you look at what Oregon's done, losing to 2 of the worst teams in the Pac-12, and then
yeah,
just missing that UW game where they wanted to play. Who knows how this game is going to turn out? We're going to talk about that pretty soon with the key matchups.
Yeah, so I want to first get to some of the comments in the chat. We've got Scott and Emil in the chat. As always, two of our most loyal Trojan Dash viewers. Thank you so much for being back here again. We got Emil saying, I'm hoping Oregon plays well so we can see a good game. I doubt it, but still hopeful. We were talking about this prior to the show. We are kind of doubtful about that as well. We'll sort of talk about what we expect to see from a game quality perspective when we drop our predictions in the final 10 minutes or so of the program. Then we got Scott saying Oregon will have over 80 plus yards of penalties. And I think that's definitely a thing that could happen, right? I said, they're going to be healthy, they're going to be rested, but they might be sloppy. So that is definitely something that we're going to see. We're going to see whether or not that sort of layover is going to hurt them at all. But I think we are leading right into our second segment of the show, which is what are some of the key matchups we are sort of expecting to determine the outcome of this game. I will hand you the floor right here. What are some of the areas you see really deciding who wins this Pac-12 championship game?
Yeah, so defensively, you're looking at tackling. What team can tackle better? Is it going to be USC or is it going to be Oregon? And then you look at Oregon, will the D-line show up? Because that's been a question all season. Where's the D-line been? Where's Kayvon Thibodeau? Where's Jordan Scott? Where's Mace Funa? And they showed up in the Cal game, but you can't just show up one game out of the whole entire season, out of 5 games. That's unacceptable. So you're looking at it, will they show up? Because when they showed up, they made life way easier on the DBs. You saw DBs making plays, but even so, you saw Diamador Lanier. How is that matchup going to be with Amon-Ra St. Brown? Will he be able to contain him? And I think, frankly, the answer is no. He's not going to be able to contain him. It's going to be a tough game, tough outing for Lanier. I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's going to be able to do whatever he wants all game. And then offensively for the Ducks, you look at it, will Shuck have 80-plus rushing yards? Because if he does, that means that USC is not being able to stop not only his run game, but the running back's run game. And then once he opens up his own run game, that's when the RPO offense, that's when the offense just opens up everywhere. You look at the receivers, you look at Spencer Webb. Will he play this game? That's a question that will be answered pretty soon. And then you look at, will Micah Pittman play? Will Devon Williams play? Because they have yet to play in the same game. Individually, they've done great. But if they both play together with Johnny Johnson and Jalen Redd, I mean, Oregon's attack, they can just throw it out. But you just look at that. Will the run game be established by Tyler Shuck? And will CJ Verdell be how he was in that Stanford game? Will he get 100-plus rushing yards? So those are the key for Oregon for me.
Yeah, I always come back to the run game too. From a USC offensive standpoint, right, I'm kind of worried because you saw in the UCLA game, when they finally opened up the run game, they started seeing man, and from there it's over. I say it every week. Everybody says this every week. Pretty much any defensive back in the Pac-12 versus any one of USC's like top 3 or 4 wideouts, USC is going to have a field day there, right? So Vavai Malapaya is going to be out. He had 19 carries for 110 yards and a touchdown against the Bruins. He's going to be out. Marquise Stepp is going to see an increased role in all likelihood. So if USC can establish the run game there, I think it just goes to open up the entire pass game, and that's how USC is going to win games. I'm not expecting on the ground 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, like 45 carries, right? I'm just expecting them to do enough so that Oregon respects that, right? And when teams respect that, it's usually a pretty good day. And on the defensive side, stopping Oregon's run game is going to be huge. USC's defensive backs have been playing really well the last couple weeks, and I expect that to continue. So if they can shut down the passing game there and they can do a somewhat effective job of stopping, Verdell, however many times Dye runs the ball, Tyler Shuck too, they are going to be able to slow this Oregon offense. But USC has trouble with the run game on both sides of the ball. We've seen it the last couple of weeks. So, they haven't really let it cost them yet. And I always keep on coming back to is this team gets stops in the biggest moments, right? Demetric Felton can burn you for a touchdown on like a 45-yard screen pass, right? But when it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter, Dorian Thompson-Robinson or any one of UCLA's running backs, they didn't have any success running the ball in those short yardage spots, right? And that's how USC ended up winning that game. And they've really been doing that all season, right? So again, the run game on both sides of the ball is pretty much what's going to decide this. I think if USC can open up the pass game, especially if they see man coverage, Trojans should be able to take care of this one.
Yeah, Nathan, I want to ask you quickly. Do you believe in USC's DNs to be able to contain Tyler Shuck in that RPO offense?
Yeah, I do, just because Drake Jackson has been playing so. Marlon Tuipulotu has kind of slowed down the last couple weeks, but Drake Jackson has been just awesome the entire season, and the defensive line has been one of the main areas of improvement that I've seen. From week one to where we are now. So again, it's the kind of thing where like they have the talent to be able to do that, but if Oregon's deceptive enough to the point where like the RPOs really throw them off, you don't really know what's coming, it could cause some problems. It's going to come down to USC's linebackers being able to contain those sort of weird quirky RPOs or those like screen passes or those kinds of things. So they've been doing a better job of stopping that in the last couple weeks, but they again haven't quite seen an offense like the one they're going to see in about 2.5 hours now. So that's going to be a key to the game for me. And another key, I think, is the turnovers. Right? I was looking through some of the stats, and this kind of caught my eye. Right? USC's average turnover margin per game this year is plus 1.4, which is tied for fourth best in the FBS. Oregon's is the exact opposite. They are minus 1.4. They are tied for fourth worst. And to me, it's like Oregon. This is why I keep on saying like Oregon is a better team than they've been playing. They're probably better than a 3-2 team. And if they could take care of the ball, that's really why they've been losing some of these games. You saw defense only allowed 21 points to Cal, and Cal's not a powerhouse offense by any stretch. But given how Oregon's defense have been playing the last couple of weeks, they allowed 41 points to Oregon State, and that's just not where you want to be. So taking that step forward shows that the defense might be about to peak, I guess you could say, maybe. And if the offense can take care of the ball, which is what's really been costing them so many of these close games late, I don't know. The Oregon could. I don't even want to say shock people, because I think like Oregon is, as I said, better than a 3-2 team. They're probably one of those teams that hasn't quite peaked yet. And if this was a regular year, it would be like Game 6. They would still have 5 games to go, and we would all be saying like Oregon hasn't hit their stride yet. Now that they're approaching the end of the season, it's kind of like, is this the Oregon team that? Is this the actual Oregon team? I think no. I think that they're a better team. And if they can take care of the ball, they're going to be a much better team. But again, I think USC's playmakers assume that they're prepared on the defensive side, which I think they should be at the time. What do you think?
Whether he can control it, because it's basically been him the whole entire season with the turnovers. And will he be able to go through his progressions? Because that's been a question since the Stanford game. You're talking about since the beginning of the season. He said it himself. I need to be able to go through my progressions, through the route tree, through the plays.
Yeah.
And he has not been able to do it all season long. And you look at it, you question some of the throws that he has, because you see it. He loves to throw in the middle of the field. I don't know why. I've never seen a quarterback that just loves to throw in the middle of the field where the linebackers live at. So he loves to give the ball to linebackers, and you've seen it. There's about like 3 or 4 picks that should have been picked off throughout the whole entire season, but whether it was a strong safety or a linebacker, they just weren't able to get their hands on the ball because they were so surprised. You see the shock in their face. You're like, why would he even throw it to me? Like I'm right here. So you question, will he be able to control that? And what's he going to do in the run game too? Because if he's out flailing, because you see it, he's had some fumbles running the ball too, and that's because he has the ball out. I don't know why quarterbacks, they love to run with the ball out, and that's you're asking for a fumble right there. So will he be working on keeping the ball close to his chest, running like the running backs that talk to Verdell, or
Yeah.
Habibi Lekia or Dai and said, "Hey guys, what can I do with this fumbling problem?" Maybe the coaches have helped him with that. I don't know, but that turnover problem, it's solely on Shuck. Will he be able to control that, or will he fall again into his old habits?
Yeah, and for me, Talanoa Hufanga is going to be a guy to watch there because he has really been the anchor of USC's defense all season. He's been their best player pretty much, and he actually had no picks. He's a junior. He had no picks in his whole college career, and all of a sudden he's gotten one each in each of his last four games, right? And especially if he's playing more of a linebacker role like he's been playing the last few weeks, less so last week, but especially against Washington State, you were talking about Shuck having a problem with giving balls to opposing linebackers. That has all the makings for maybe Hufanga to pick up his 5th straight pick, which is, if that comes later, if that comes in a deciding moment of this game, that could turn things around for the worse for the Ducks. We have a comment from Emil saying, I expect more of a USC air raid and not a running game from USC. Me too, and that's kind of exactly what I'm worried about, right? Because we've seen when Graham Harrell and the USC offense decides to go full air raid, teams are going to drop 8, and it becomes a lot tougher. They've gotten the job done. Obviously, this team's 5-0. They've gotten the job done, but it's just a lot more difficult to handle when you haven't established the run game. With Vavai out, I'm worried because he was the guy that was really establishing the run game for the Trojans last week. And if you don't have him there, or if you say we're not going to run the ball as much because our guy, our horse, he's been the best running back for the Trojans this year. If they decide to completely ditch the run game altogether and say we're going to go full-blown air raid because that's our strength, but you better figure be drop 8, because if you can't, they're just going to be anticipating the pass all day, and that has all the things for a disastrous performance from the Trojans. I think it's all about establishing the run game early and being effective in
and if
in
they
doing
do that,
so.
Roman McKinley, he's been a great safety for Oregon. This is his first year starting. You saw he made a lot of plays his freshman year. He's only a sophomore, and if this is going to be an air raid game, him and Mikael Wright, they've been phenomenal sophomores. But I think the game, whether it's going to be close or not, it's dependent on Diamondor Lanier. Will he step up as a senior, a returning senior? Because remember, he opted out of the season earlier this year to try to improve his draft stock, and I think he's just done the opposite. He has not been that good. He's gone burnt, and you just see, will he be in the right headspace to be able to control these USC receivers? And if he can do his job, that's going to make it so much more better on Roman McKinley, because he loves to make plays on the ball. He's great at making breaks on the ball. He reads the quarterback's eyes perfectly. So I expect at least a play from him, maybe a pick from McKinley. I don't know. It's dependent on whether the D line can get pressure on Keaton Slovis. And Nathan, how has Keaton Slovis done with pressure throughout the season?
So early in the season, he was getting a lot of pressure and he just looked uncomfortable. Like he was playing about where his floor was, which, as I've said many times, is still pretty high. So like if Keaton Slovis is playing at his floor, it's not the end of the world. But since then, the offensive line's gotten a lot better. He's looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket. I expect that to continue, although I do think it is worth mentioning. Kayvon is going to be matching up against Elijah Vera Tucker, presumably, which I think is a matchup that's going to be awesome, right? Two NFL guys. So I think that'll be an awesome matchup to watch on the left side. But we are running a little bit late here, so let's run into our predictions. I want to talk first about as I said, the quality expected. I before the show how the Pac-12, like this on a Friday, had to move the Pac-12 championship game to a Friday night when it's pretty much the only college football game being played on this. Just to have people watch, it just makes much sense for this to be terrible. 5+ turnovers, bad special teams, we're probably gonna. So I'm and especially how this game was either from scratch. Again, didn't know it was going to be playing in this game at all, and know who until Monday because of just terrible football game. Somebody's gonna. So I will let you have the floor first here. Give me a score. Give me
I
a
see this
winner
being a
for
high
tonight's
scoring
Pac-12
game.
champion.
Defenses, they will play great, but they're not going to be able to do enough against these high performing offenses. And I see it coming down to the kicker, to Oregon's freshman kicker. Will he be able to win the game, or will he choke? And Oregon's going to talk about having bad kickers again. So I see the game being 38-35, going down to the very last minute.
For who?
For Oregon. For Oregon.
Oregon? For Oregon. All right. Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, too. I think it's going to be – I could see it being a close game, but that's just because I think I'm buying into the whole narrative of, like, this game's going to be terrible, all the sense in the world for you not all that great. So I think if things go the way go, you've seen that this Oregon, what it's been the last couple of years. I think you would agree to that, too. And I think USC is going to come out hungry. I think they're going to come out fast. Particularly on the offensive side. But once you get into like the second, third, fourth quarters, I think it's all going to come down to the run game. And if USC can stop Oregon's run game, and then for Oregon it's going to come down to whether you can stop these wideouts, right? And I'm not particularly confident in either defense's ability to do so. I just think that I'm more confident in USC's ability to slow down the run game, which is basically the heart of Oregon's offense. So I can see this game being late. I certainly think it'll be possessions, but if I be a betting man right now, and again, I think is true with this year. And as for the trusting this team, good luck. Right, this team makes no sense. They come out, they beat Washington State by 25 points. They were up 38-7 or something at some point in that game. And then, people were saying, oh, like the UCLA matchup's going to be tough. It was a really popular upset pick. I made that pick as well, I will confess. And I picked the Bruins to win that game, and then like they should have won that game. Like USC should not have won that game, but they made the plays late. They ended up pulling that one out. If we're going to destroy, they ended up winning by Arizona State. Ended up winning by one. Whatever, take a grain of salt. USC 38 or 27.
I think that's really good
What do you think?
analysis of that, because you look at it, UC's going to be hungry, and if they do stop the run game, that makes Oregon one-dimensional. And a one-dimensional Oregon team, you've seen them against Oregon State and Cal, that is not bode well for them, because Tyler Shuck, right now he's not the guy to be able to outright win the game just by passing the ball. So if they can't take away the run game, Oregon, they're going to be sitting ducks. But honestly, the only reason I see it being such a high-scoring game is because a lot of these Oregon recruits or guys, they are from LA. This is their backyard. This is their stomping ground. Yeah. So they want to show out for their family and friends and everything. That's why you saw such a lopsided game last year, and that's why I expect a really good game this year, because you have a lot of LA kids playing against each other.
I think too. I think Oregon. I USC is going to come out hungry because there's so much on the line for them. But I think the same is true with Oregon too. They hear the noise, right? They ignore the thing in this game, right? Or probably not the team in the Pac-12 playing in this game if it were Washington's coach. But I promise you, they'll hear that this team's talented. They're going to come out and say, we want to make a statement, whether or not this is like the most of championship game. So I think both teams are gonna hungry. In the end, lack of preparation thing, lack of, I guess, knowing what to expect from the other side, that might be drowned out by the fact that these teams are both going to be super hungry. So I don't know, but that is going to do it. We are running a little bit late on. That is going to do it for this edition of Trojan Dash, or crossover Trojan Dash. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Izzy, for joining the show as well. Just a friendly reminder to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat at Dash Sports TV. Check out our website at dashsports.tv. We also do exclusive columns with sports. Check those out on our website, which will link to their website, so you can find at both of those. I do there. You can look there. It's going to be a fun game. It'll be an end. I could see Oregon winning and pulling it out. Who knows? Thanks again for talking to you.